two, one. Here we go. Hi again, everyone. And I will immediately hand over the mic to Alistair. Here you go.
Fantastic. Welcome, everybody, to Bo Mortenson's YouTube channel. My name is Alistair Unicorn, and I am going to be interviewing Bo Mortenson, who is the captain of the Danish bolt action team and has recently returned from Southend World Open War, Warlord's official team event, as the overall champion and winner. Congratulations, Bo.
Thank you.
What we need to discover from Bo is his path to victory. So we're going to start very much at the beginning and ask Bo, how did you put your team together? How did you select the right players to take to Southend?
Well, actually, for this one, we weren't that serious about it to start with. I know this is weird coming from me, but at the start we were just like, I asked her out. Does anyone want to go for a 3-man team? Because we were very much focused on 4-man bold action for the last couple of years, and people were like, nah, maybe, I don't know. So the usual team had basically dropped out. So I picked the players who could go basically. So all of that we usually have with events, they had been run, but they had been run to qualified for the WTC team, like the 4-man team. So I ended up with Michael Christensen, who was also on my 4-man team, and Mark, who has been on the Danish B team before, but who has been sort of a prodigy going into many of these events. We've been training Mark up the last couple of years. He's really good by now. He's even beaten me a couple of times. And these two guys were like, yeah, we'll come. So we were not that fussed about it to start with, actually.
But you still had two players that were very experienced.
They were
in what they
experienced,
do.
yeah, and they both of them had been to events before. I think Michael has been on the Danish WTC team 2 or 3 times and has gone abroad to tournaments as well. And Mark has been on the B team 2 times and has also gone abroad to tournaments. So they know what they're doing. Yeah.
Yep. No, I've seen both your players in Scotland for tournaments as well. So
yeah,
not unknown faces.
not unknown. No.
So with the players selected and your team formed, there then comes the how do you choose what nation? Because we know that the format of World Open War is that you can't duplicate nations within a team. So how did you divide that up between your squad?
Well, the easy part was me, because I have been undefeated with Brit like forever. I know how to run assault Brits basically, and I've been running variations of the same list for many tournaments, and so everyone was like, "Yeah, you do Brits." So that was easy, and from that we had a discussion about what are the nations to take. We all knew that Soviets were the number 2 nation to take, right? So Soviets was also a dead giveaway, and Michael has been playing Soviets for quite a while. He has experimented with both Bulgarians and Romanians as well, but hasn't really gotten to like feel the gun line armies yet. So Soviets was very much his go-to, and he had this rather strange idea that came up just prior to us going to the Dutch nationals together. He and I and a group of the others, but also some of the players from the Jutland team, we went to the Dutch nationals, and he had this idea that you could build an all forward deploying army, because I guess he was tired of losing to my preparatory bombardments. So he was like, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm forward deploying my whole army. So that was his idea, and I was like, okay, well, we're not fussed about the event. You build a forward deploying army then, if you want to. We'll see what happens. So he did. So that was Soviets down and Brits down. And then for Mark is an avid Japanese player. He knows the Japanese. He's been playing them for quite a while. He's one of the players that has been introducing new builds into the Danish meta, and he has a build that's centered around the HE spam, like not inexperienced, regular mortars in units. So And once he said, "Well, I'll take my Japanese," I was like, "Okay, you do that," because we weren't that fussed. We just wanted three competitive-ish nations, and I still hope that Japan can do something at some point. So that was it.
So, so with the players in place and the lists in place, was there ever any impact upon that based upon the player pack itself?
Not really. We did read through the missions, especially with Michael's all forward deploy army. Was that even going to be possible? Were forward deployment allowed in most missions, and would it be effectful? And there were a couple of missions where it wasn't allowed, of course, timely objectives. And we sort of debated whether it was worth it, and ended up just saying, okay, well, in four of the six missions, it's possible and it could have an effect. So yeah, we'll do that. But we didn't actually go back and think, well, this is the wrong nations that we're picking or the wrong lists at that point. We felt like again, like we talked about in the last interview, if you have an army where you are pretty certain that you can smash face, you can beat an opposing list, if it's the right one, then you're also pretty certain that you can win the missions, um, if you focus on them. So that was the main focus. Yeah.
So beyond that, though, we were quite fortunate. We had a lot of information about the event going in, and that the draw happened for the different groups
Mm,
on day one,
mm.
with Denmark getting a top seed, even though you were there to just to have fun,
Yeah.
so to speak. But we also got the options to see all the lists
Yeah.
that were going to be presented to us. So, what, as the captain, all that information's coming to you. How did you use it to prep your team? And a question as well is that when did you decide you weren't going for fun?
When
When did it get serious?
for me, that happened when the list came out, and I saw the lists, and I was like, wow, these are good lists. And I also started, because I know so many of the players by now, I started actually guessing which players were in which lists. So and then the whole process that usually happens for me up to a tournament, that started then when the lists came out. um, I started going through every single list. I started making plans for every single list, which is I didn't need to do that at all because I was not playing all the teams, right? But I started doing that, and I felt like, okay, I'll just run my usual process, and then I sent the lists to my teammates, and I set up a few conference calls where we were like sitting down, talking through the group that we were in, all the lists there, what matchups did we want, what matchups didn't we want, all that. We wrote it down. Um, and then I went on vacation the week before. Wow, I went on vacation, and I had two things I was doing on that vacation. One, I'm a school teacher, so I had a group of essays that I was correcting, sitting on a beach in Turkey, which was perfect. And then I had all the lists and the pack printed out. So I sat there looking at the list, looking through the lists, writing notes in the margins of the lists. Um, so that really kickstarted my process there, when I saw the lists, and for me, I was still going on a 2-year undefeated record, right? So I sort of felt like, okay, maybe the team doesn't want to win, but at least I want to win my games. So I started my process at least. Yeah,
So with the prep done,
yeah,
you arrive on day one.
yeah,
The atmosphere was extremely good.
yeah.
You can't deny that. But who who was your round one, and then how easy was it for you to deliver upon the matchups that you wanted to get with your opponents in your own lists?
You know what? It felt really easy because and this is one of the places where Michael especially is brilliant to have on a team, because he's a poker player as well. Played Magic the Gathering. He's been doing all sorts of other competitive gaming stuff. And he and I will sit down and actually talk through the matchups and play a few rounds where he can like be whatever, Spain or whatever, and I'll be Denmark, and we'll play the round and see if we can get the matchups. And we did that. We did it the night before. Me and Mark did it in the airport as well, and I had been having a few conference calls with the Jutland team where the captain and I had done it as well. So so I was pretty prepped for that. And once I was in the matchup, uh, Michael was standing right next to me and saying, "Okay, I think we should do this." Um, and most of the time, we had like one list that we wanted to throw down first on one table. So if it was Michael or Mark or me, that player would decide which table that they want, and then we would throw down that list. And then the two other lists, our process was they would be split. So one list would want to face armor, and one list would want to face infantry, basically. And we tried to ensure that those lists that we determined the matchups for those two, um, by putting down the one list first. So that was the whole process of the matchup system, and we got our matchups all through the both days. Basically, we got the matchups. There was two times where we got a matchup where one player, me, had said that they didn't want that matchup, but at that point I didn't care anymore. I knew I could take anyone, but at that
Yep.
point, yeah.
So your first round on day one, who did you face?
We faced the Swiss, Stefan Swiss, which was a new, new group of players for us, except that I knew Stefan, um, and that meant that I was pretty happy that they actually matched up Stefan against me,
Oh, good.
because I knew him, I knew what he was capable of, and he knew me, so my two other players could go and play their matchups on the tables that they wanted. I took the worst table, and we faced off against. And luckily for me, Stefan gave me the side which I wanted, so that was always good. It was a very unequal table where one side had hard cover and the other side had line of sight blocking. So, and I wanted the line of sight blocks, and he gave it to me. Um, and I believe we got two wins and one draw, and I was actually the draw because Stefan got lucky with an artillery bombardment. But it was a good game and thoroughly enjoyable. Yeah.
But that's the start you wanted to the round, to the group
Actually,
stage.
actually not. If I had chosen anything, I would have wanted to win all three games, but that didn't pan out. So at this point, I was still feeling like, yes, I'm on a roll. I need to win my games, but the rest, okay, we'll see what happens. The competitiveness started after round two, actually.
Right.
We faced the American Swans, and they turned out to be surprisingly good, but we won against them, and we were like, okay, well, we might actually win this, which would put us in the top bracket, wouldn't it? Um, and against the Americans, I was playing against Colton, who ended up being the best placed American player, and who was a 19-year-old kid, basically. Uh, and that was brilliant. He beat my army to shreds, but I won the game massively because I was just playing on the objectives.
Yeah.
And again, so we win the round, and we were like, okay.
Playing the
And
mission is always important.
yeah, it is. and and at this point I had also taken all my secondaries, and the others were taking like half of the secondaries, so we were also kind of going okay on secondaries. So we felt like after round two, that was when for me it really started to become right, we might actually have a shot here.
And so then you bumped into one of the so-called home nations from the
Yeah,
United Kingdom,
yeah,
and for the life of me, I cannot remember which one it was.
it was Cymru,
So the second Wales team.
the second Wales team, yeah. And they had some great players on that team, and we knew some of the players and had seen them before. We hadn't actually played against many of them, although Mark had played against most of the players on that team. I had not, um, and again, we were just trying to get the matchups that we wanted at that point. I I threw down myself, I think, on one of the very open desert tables, and they matched up their captain Riz against me. He had an American army, and I was pretty happy about that because once I saw his list, I knew that I outranged him. I had a lot more machine guns than he did. He had artillery, but I had machine guns, and we were playing timely objectives, so I knew I could be on the objectives.
Yeah.
And yeah, and by then, once we we won against Cymru, we actually found out that the American Swans had caught up to us at that point. So we had 15 points in the tournament, and they had 15 points in the tournament. So we thought that we might actually be out of the tournament at that point. I
Yeah.
even made a video saying, "Well, I think we're out," and that was like for 10 minutes, and then I saw the secondaries, and I knew we were in the winning bracket, and then
Yeah.
it really got serious. Yeah.
So that seriousness carried into the Saturday night entertainments where there was a
Sorry.
big
Yeah,
dinner.
it did.
Um, when all the teams got together, we all shared a meal, and it was
Yeah,
nice and intimate. It was very good,
it
good
was.
atmosphere.
Yeah.
Now I know the answer to some of these questions already, because I sat there near you. But how did you manage your team that night?
Um. Well. um. Unfortunately, we sat down with a couple of friends from the German team, um, and some of the Dutch had come over. Danny had come over in order to just observe the event and talk to us about an event that he's hosting. And so we sat down with them and had dinner. And once I bought the first round, of the beers were just coming at that point. And once we got to like 9:30, I was like, okay, this is going to go into partying. Unless I do something, this is going to go into partying. At that point, I stood up and said, that's it. The Danish team are out. And both of my Danes looked at me and were like, what? Are we out? Are we going back? What? Why? And I was like, yep, that's it. We are in the winning bracket. You know what that means. We are out. So I actually pulled the team out. I made a captain's decision and pulled them away from their beers and their drinks and their partying. And yeah, um, everyone's like, "Are you going back already?" Yeah, if we
Yeah,
have a chance, I'm going back. Yeah,
yeah. So I said some funny yet unkind things to you that night. I don't need to repeat them here, but you know they were in good taste.
yeah.
And but again, though, so with with that time you afforded yourself on the Saturday night, was there was there any work done for the next day
Yeah, there
with yourself
was.
and the team?
Yeah, there was. We went back, slightly drunk, all of us, but we walked back, which kind of helped actually because it made us burn off a little of the alcohol. Um, and we sat down and we took out all the lists that we no longer needed to look at. So just the top lists, because at that point we knew the top lists. So we knew the group that we were going into. So we sat down, looked over the lists again, and we had already talked about most of them because we knew that these teams, most of them were top seeded. Um, and then talked through the matchups, talked through the first mission. I don't think we talked through all of them, but we talked through the first mission. So everyone was they knew before going to bed. Actually, they knew what was going to happen on the day after. That it took us about an hour of prep time in the evening there, which was good. Was it needed? I don't know, but it's part of the process that I usually do. You know this, and everyone gives me heat for it, but it's just part of what we do. Once we're in where we might actually bring back some medals, we want to be as prepped as I can, if I can. It was
So,
really hard stopping Michael. I'll tell you that one.
oh, I know. I was on the opposite end, pulling him back from you.
Yeah, yeah.
But with that all said and done, so Sunday morning,
Mm.
awaken, and you get to the venue all fresh and ready to go to work. Not fresh,
Not fresh at
not
all.
fresh.
Not fresh at all. Unfortunately, our B&B was not amazing, and I had gotten very little sleep. And during the weekend, at that point, I think I had like for 2 nights, I had 4 hours combined or something like that. So
Not the
I was
best.
no, but like you described, at that point, the tails were up and everyone is pumped, so you don't really feel the fatigue as I think you normally would.
Hmm.
I was pumped, and I knew that going into that second day, we needed to do one thing. We needed to beat the Spanish. That was it. That was the main goal.
Yep. So
So
who was in the champions group?
so we were in group with Spain, England, which was basically the tabletop Tommies, Johnny Curran and those guys, and then Wales won. So definitely not nobodies. All of them well-known international players.
Yep.
The Spanish, of course, the top guys, but the other guys not pushovers by any means. Um, so we knew we had a day for us. We really did, yeah.
Good. So who was round one, day two? Who was it?
Well, that was Spain.
Was it really?
Yeah,
Wow, I didn't realize that.
and that was actually kind of yeah. I was kind of happy about that actually because that meant that all the prep you weren't distracted by having just played a game. You could go straight into the game, be prepped, everything could work out the way you wanted it, and you could just fight that first game. And if we won that, we knew that we had lots more work to do. If we lost it, we could relax and just have fun for the rest of the day. That was it. Um, so yeah, we went into that very prepped. Everyone was hyped. My players were like, "I can win this. I can win that." And I actually said to one player, "Try to go in. Try to get a draw." Um, I threw my teammate Mark under the bus. I gave him Carlos, who I think is the best of the Spanish team. Um, and um, and basically we had a lot of even matchups. Michael was against Achilles. Uh, he won against Achilles. I was against Hano. I won against Hano, and then Mark lost to Carlos.
Yep.
So we actually did manage to get the win against the Spanish. Yeah.
And
Um,
then that obviously, I know that you would have seen that as being the biggest hurdle to
yeah.
get over and to get
It
over
would.
it
Yeah.
first. So
Yeah.
that then set you up to challenge. Would have been, was it Wales
Yeah. Then
next
it
for
was
you?
Wales. Yeah. Yeah. Um,
So remind me, I know that was Wales the team that had all the engineer, flamethrower, barbecue lists.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
As did the English though, but yeah, Welsh had a lot of those. And for the life of me, I can't remember how the uh, I played against Paul Wickens on a Stalingrad table. So he had brought his Gurkhas, I had Gurkhas. So as Paul said at one point, this is very cagey, isn't it? And I was like, yeah, we were both playing very conservatively, but I was completely focused on my game at that point. I completely lost track of what my teammates were doing. We were also separated by quite a bit. Like I had one in one of the other rooms at that point, so we didn't actually know anything, and I couldn't go around and or just look up and glance and see what was going on. So I completely focused on winning my game, and I got lucky and I smashed Paul's Gurkhas to bits. I shot them up. We were playing that one where there was three objectives. Was that it? Yeah, there were three objectives, and the one in the middle. We both knew that the one in the middle would be the one to watch. So we both moved up to contest it, and I just moved my. I had an LVT and a Darker Steward and three motorcycles. All of that shooting as a Gurkhas every turn. Ended up cutting them down to a size where I could manage them. So I got the win there. All the way did make a mistake and forgot about his uh, his Jeep with a flamethrower team in it. But luckily he forgot about them as well. So
Yeah. And your other players, how did they do in that round?
um, I think we had one more win and a loss or something like that. We won the round there as well, but narrowly.
Yep.
So and I can't remember the actual score for that. Um, but going into round three, we knew that, or maybe we drew against the Welsh. I think we drew actually. What was important for me was that going into round three, we knew that the Welsh had to do well against the Spanish, and we had to beat the English.
Yes.
That that was it. In order to win, that was what we needed to do. So my instructions going into that was all out assault. We need to win this. My team just got they. You need to win it. And I put myself down again. on the worst board I could possibly get. So
Hmm.
that was a Stalingrad board, and I played against the worst list I could possibly face, Johnny Curran's barbecue list, and I absolutely smashed him.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Good.
Your question,
And then,
sorry.
well, and then that obviously set you up for the winning the round
Yeah.
and winning the trophy. And it's that. So with starting off as a casual approach,
Hmm.
for
Became
then for
more and
then
more
for it
serious.
for then
Yeah.
for it to turn very serious.
Hmm.
How much of an impact has that had for you winning, and how much of an impact for your community?
Well, the community has been quite impressed. There was a lot of positive feedback, a lot of joy that we brought home the trophy. Um, no one, I think, no one really expected it. Because the World Open War was not as well known an event as the WTC yet. Um, Most people were not really following intensely along at home, and the only thing that happened during the days was at one point, one guy posted on our Facebook group. Everything in Denmark goes on Facebook. One guy posted, "What's happening at World Open War? Bo has gone radio silence. What? Nothing's happening. He's not posting anything." And I was like, "I am starting to focus. I haven't got time to do anything for you guys." Um, yeah. So it did have the effect that people were starved of information once the event got into day two, actually. But um, I had to focus at that point. Someone else needs to be my media manager, I think.
Well, I'm very glad uh, that you guys had such a good time, and I can tell you very honestly that all your friends in Scotland and all you know all the other friends that we've got who are from Denmark, we are very proud that you guys stood on that top podium to claim your prize. And we know that you put in a huge amount of work, and you also enjoy it a huge
Yeah,
amount. Seeing
yeah.
seeing yourselves and our other Danish friends enjoy playing bolt action, and knowing that you can get that success as well. So we are also very proud of you. Um, I would like to thank your audience and thank you for letting me take over your channel for this one video. But do you have any closing remarks as the captain of Denmark on your achievement?
Um, well, it feels strange to have done this. I went into bold action like after the first game I had with my friend Michael Fee. He introduced me to it, and the first game, and we looked at each other and said, "We want to be world champions." So I feel kind of strange having achieved that, especially because Michael Fee was not there. He wasn't on the team, and we had that moment, and to achieve something that you start a hobby wanting to achieve, that feels weird. I'm not sure how it will sink in or whatever, but and it's for me personally, it's like the first time I've let my colleagues know that I have this weird little hobby and that I'm doing rather well in it. It's the first
Mm-hmm.
time I've ever let anyone in public know that this is I just did this, that happened for real. And people were like, "What? You're the world champion. You're the only world champion I've ever met. What?" So that has been weird for me, and of course the fault that now everyone is coming gunning for me and my team because we beat the Spanish. We finally pushed the Spanish off the throne, and now everyone's going to come and try push off us off. That's also kind of strange.
Yep.
So
Well, we'll see how it all plays out in 2024.
yep,
World Open War returns to Southend, and we'll see what you can do.
we will. Thank you
Very
so
best of luck,
much.
Bo. Stay safe.
Cheers.